I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and today on Genesis Does, we're looking at Mazin Saga Mutant Fighter. Now, this has an incredibly complicated history, and given that, I'm actually kind of surprised that they even localized it and released it for North America, but I guess that's just a sign of how popular the Sega Genesis was at this time in the 90s, how big the install base was, and how confident they were that even something that might not be well known outside of Japan could still succeed in the United States if translated and localized for the Western market. But they certainly didn't tone down any of the biblical references for Sega Genesis that would have gotten this banned on Super Nintendo. You see a lot of references to hell in this that would not have flown on Nintendo. Nintendo did not do that. Anyway, I'll try my best to explain what's going on here, but please take it with a grain of salt because I have not read Go Nagai's manga that this is based on, and that has an incomplete publishing history anyway. It is still to be finished, with Nagai stating in 2007 that it would be someday, but here we are 15 years later and it still hasn't been, so I wouldn't hold your breath for that. Anyway, our protagonist is named Koji Kabuto, and he is the son of a world-renowned physicist who died under mysterious circumstances, either right before or right as the Earth was being attacked by a powerful bio-beast from the mysterious god Kaiser Hell. Interesting that in that one name, they're saying that the enemy is God and the leader of the German occupation forces and the demon himself, the devil incarnate, God, Kaiser, and Hell. Any one of those things could have been ominous enough, but apparently this manga took it the extra length and said, your enemy is God, Kaiser, Hell. So there's a Holocaust, hell on Earth, everything is destroyed, the environment is rendered unsuitable to live in, and humans abandon the surface and move underground. But because Koji Kabuto has discovered his father's Mazinger Z armor, he is able to wear the suit and fight back against the gigantic bio beasts, one of whom you see right here, so large in fact that we can only attack it by its foot as it stomps the ground. Obviously this game came out long before The Binding of Isaac, but that sure reminds me of fighting Mom in the final stage of the game, or perhaps sub-final stage if you've unlocked it by beating it once before and have to go even further and deeper. But yes, very reminiscent of that, and it's a side-scrolling fighting game most of the time, and unseen in this gameplay footage that I've recorded for you, there's also a point at which the Mazinger Z becomes a gigantic bio beast in its own right and goes head to head with the God Kaiser Hell's army of bio beasts. You get to fight them one-on-one in a fighting game style. I did not reach that point largely because of unfamiliarity with this game and the fact that some of these enemies are just ridiculous when you try to hit them. You aim your sword, which is the only weapon you have in the side-scrolling beat-em-up sections, and they jump out of the way before you can even hit them. And if you're not directly on the same line horizontally as them, your attack won't land. And if you try to get close, then they'll attack you. They can hit you even though you can't hit them. Hitboxes are kind of weird in this game. And there's one in particular that drives me nuts because it's some kind of mutant lizard thing that can roll into a ball. And if you hit it while it's rolling at you, you can cut it off. But if you don't swing your attack in time, it rolls over you and takes out a lot of health. Occasionally, you will get a health pickup, but more often than not, you just get little piles of gold that are scattered around on the ground. And what good does that do you? It's not like you can buy power-ups or buy health with it. It just adds to your points. So I would appreciate more health drops and less gold drops, but you don't get a choice. The game is made the way it's made, so deal with it, sucker. That's all you can do. And you know what? How do I say this? It's not that Mazin Saga is a bad game. It's more that it doesn't do anything that I haven't seen other games do. If you like Streets of Rage or Double Dragon, you can play this exact same experience, maybe a little more or a little less fair to you depending on how you feel about that side-scrolling beat-em-up game, but Mazin Saga doesn't present to me as being a new and definitive chapter in the beat-em-up genre. It's just not that special. When you get one special move that you can only use once per stage, and I blew that right away in the first stage without even realizing it because I didn't know which button was which. I didn't know A was the special move, B was your normal attack, and C is jump. So I wasted that and then had no use for it after that. And then I just was limited to hitting things with a sword and praying I was within range to hit them. I guess I'd say it becomes borderline tedious at that point. I mean, it looks nice, the soundtrack is okay, and it's playable. It's not like it's a broken game with completely out of control video game features that would not allow you to do anything right. There's a solid mechanic to the way you move. It's just hard to line up your hitbox in a way that you don't get hit and the enemies do get hit, and sometimes you just get mobbed Ghosts and Goblins style on both sides, and you become a sponge soaking up the enemy damage as you can't turn around to face one or the other. You have no way to get out of that tight spot without any kind of special move, so you're just kind of screwed at that point. I even tried perfecting a jump and slash attack. I was hoping if I could jump in the air and then hit the weapon button that it would do some sort of combo move. And sometimes it seems like it does, but most of the time it just seems like I get hit trying to do that. So pretty useless as a combo. I wouldn't recommend it. And I just don't know if I recommend Mazin Saga if you're not a hardcore fan of the manga. And I honestly don't know anybody that is. I'm not saying that in my circle of friends it doesn't exist somewhere, but usually with most manga that my friends are fans of, they've been adapted into anime or OVA or both, and I am not aware of Mazin Saga having received anything other than a manga, which it's a stretch to say that most Western audiences would be familiar with that before playing this game. So I think of Mazin Saga as being a fluke of the success of the Sega Genesis and owing a large debt to Sonic the Hedgehog for that success. Otherwise, it and many other games that got released in the West on the Genesis would not have done so. Maybe this was a huge hit in Japan, but I suspect it was only a modest hit here. I just don't see the overwhelming appeal when there are better alternatives like the aforementioned Streets of Rage. You would be well served to play that instead of Mazin Saga. And as far as the price goes, if you really want to own it physically, it's not going to come cheap. $45 loose and $122 complete. So that might be another reason to go with Streets of Rage instead. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This has been Genesis Does. Thanks for watching.